Very good morning to all of you. We were discussing the second chapter of our business research methods. And the first chapter we have discussed the foundations, that is the basic related to the research. We have discussed what is research, what is business research, what are the different types of other researchers, and what else we can do in as a part of business research we have discussed. So in the second chapter, we are coming into the process of business research, especially, and it's a very important thing to learn this chapter because there are very important 10 steps we have to follow while we are doing the business research. The first step is to find a research area, then is to review the literature, then a research question has to be formulated, and the hypothesis has to be tested and formulated, then developing a research design out of the hypothesis, and the data has to be collected, and the data processing and analysis is an important next area. Then we have to interpret the data which we have processed, and formulation of conclusions, and the report has to be prepared. And the last point is to replicate the study for generalization. We have to repeat the study to make whether it is generalized statement or not. So we have discussed almost 3 points in the previous chapters: the choice of research area, how to find a better research area, how can we fix a research area. We have discussed almost the first point, and the review of literature also we have discussed how to go find the research gap from the previous researches that is being done, so that we can do a better research in our area. That is what we have discussed in the second point. And the third point, we have discussed how to how to find out the research problems. So we have I have given you some points how to find problems. So these are the areas in which we can find out or generate or formulate research problems, and how we can select a problem. We have discussed, and we have discussed the feasibility also, and the specification of a problem also over under our discussion in the last chapters. So we are moving on to the fourth point of our discussion, that is the formulation of hypothesis. This is the fourth step in the business research process. A hypothesis is a specific statement of prediction. It describes in concrete terms what the researcher expects to happen in his study. Every researcher will have some expectations. We have said that we should not be prejudiced about the research conclusion, but we may have some expectations in the study, that the study will go this way or that way. We'll have such a kind of expectations or judgments related to the study, but that need not misguide our study, but we'll have such kind of directions throughout the study. So this kind of a direction is called hypothesis. Gooden had defined hypothesis as a proposition which can be put to test to determine the validity. So we have a very important term called proposition. So proposition has to be tested for validity. For every research, we should have validity. The validity comes out of testing. Whether when we test the validity, only we can prove that this hypothesis or proposition is going to be the right one in the study. For example, a study conducted to find the amount spent by parents for the education of offspring will have the following hypothesis. H0 is denoted there, that is null hypothesis. Parents spend 5% of their annual income for the education of their offsprings. And we have H1, that is an alternative hypothesis 1. H1, parents spend less than 5% of their annual income. This is actually a proposition by the researcher. So he is having an idea that almost 5% is being spent on children's education by parents. So that is a kind of a prediction or a kind of a proposition by the researcher. So he need to understand whether it is right or wrong in related to the population or the samples which he has selected. So some population or the samples may find it true, or others may not find it true. That is a different scenario. But only when we come to testing, only we can understand whether this hypothesis is right or wrong. So we are going to put this hypothesis into test. Then on the basis of the analysis, we will say that whether null hypothesis is accepted or null hypothesis is rejected, and then the alternative hypothesis is being accepted. That is a different situation that we have to look into the study. So this kind of a hypothesis has to be set forward when we conduct a study. Every researcher should have this kind of an idea or kind of a proposition or kind of a prejudgment related to the study. We know we should not be prejudiced about the result. We should not say that this is the result, but we have an idea regarding that, and we are just putting forward that. And for making testing, we have this statement with us. And the next step is developing a research design. In the words of Fred and Kurlinger, it is the plan, structure, and strategy of investigation designed to obtain answers to research questions. The plan includes everything the investigator will do from the beginning to the end of the project. The working out of the plan consists of making a series of decisions with respect to what, where, when, who, and how of the research. So, as we see in the definition, we can see that research design is actually a plan, structure, and strategy of investigator. So every researcher will have these three kind of words in his mind. One thing, he will plan his research, how it should be conducted, what should be the mode of operation of this research, and what should be the structure of the research, and what are the strategies of investigation that we should be taken into consideration while conducting a research. So these are for the purpose of obtaining an answer to the research question. That is a very important thing. So every investigator, we have to use that word investigator, every investigator will have this kind of plan with him. So the questions before the investigator is that what, where, when, who, and how of the research. What should be the research? Where should be the research should be conducted? When should be the research should be conducted? Who all will be the population and the sample? And how or the method of research? What should be the method of research? All these things will be under the consideration of the investigator while doing a research. So this is called research design is all about. Otherwise, we can call it as a blueprint. As we see in every kind of projects, we'll have a plan in advance, not in between or at the end. We'll have a plan in advance. So that plan in advance is actually called a research design is all about. The design will contain information about the sampling design, the data collection design, and the instrument design. Very important things. We'll decide in advance what will be our sample. For that, we have to discuss what is a population. We decide in advance the population is all about, and we'll how we will select samples from that. We will discuss in sample designing how many samples should be taken, what should be the method of sampling. All these things will be discussed in research design first. And in the second one, data collection design, how we will collect data, what should be the methodology for that, from where we will collect data, what all tools we can use, whether we have to use written questionnaire, or to use an online questionnaire. All those things we will discuss, and the instrument design also we will discuss, something which is related to that also. So all these things will come into consideration of an investigator while making a research design in advance. And the next one is the collection of data. Once the blueprint is ready, there is investigator is in the force of collecting the data. Once the blueprint of the research design has been prepared, the next step is to actual collection of data. This helps us to proceed further. This is the crux of the research, we can say. Unless and until we have a data with us, we cannot go ahead with the research. So, with the plan which we have created already, we have to go ahead with collecting the data. So that is an actual practice. We are entering into a field of data collection. In some cases we can use the secondary data. That is another case. We have to go for the published data and search whether we have a relevant data for the publication, that we have to check into consideration. So that is also possible. We can select the data from already existing sources. But most of the cases in social science, we can use the primary method of data collection, where we have to create a questionnaire or a schedule, and we have to actually go to the respondent and to ask questions and come back. And that is a methodology in primary data collection. So we have to discuss that or we have to decide that while creating the research design. That is another fact. So actual practice of research is happening here in data collection. That is a very important point, whether it is a even if it is a very simple one, but this is the most important one related to a research, we can say. And the next process is data processing and analysis. Once we have collected the entire data, once we have collected sufficient data for us, we have to process the data. That means data is actually a raw one. From that we can't understand anything. So we have to understand what the respondents actually trying to convey to the researcher or to the public. What are his opinions? That must be processed, and it must be reached into a conclusion. So that we have to start with the data processing. And the data processing begins with editing and coding. That means we have to make clarity in data. We have to make some we have to make some modifications in data in an understandable format. We have to code the data, especially if in case of all variables has to be coded, because we have to give some numbers to the data we have already collected, especially in case of a gender. If we take the variable gender, gender is having two variable attributes, that is male and female. So this gender, when we take it as a variable, we can number it as male as 1 and female as 2, or male as 0 and female as 1. This is a kind of a coding that we can give. So this kind of numbering we have to give to the the variables we select. So that is the first process of editing and coding. Next step is the data is classified and tabulated. For the purpose of easily understanding the data, we have to classify the data into different rows and columns, and it must be entered into a tabular column. And the tabulated data is analyzed using the statistical techniques like average, percentages, trend analysis, correlation, and regression. All these things we have understood in QT. So these are the steps we are following, and the next steps will be discussed in the upcoming classes, we can say. I hope you understand this kind of this much steps we have discussed in the business process of research, business research process. I think we have to go through the next process in the another class. We'll discuss that, and hope you understand what I have tried to cover with you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.